Let's do this.
Woo!
Ring the bell. This is Between the Ropes.
Oh, you're going for the dirt, for the behind-the-scenes stuff.
It's time to get between the ropes. Between the Ropes.
Talking with Chris Jericho, his new book, The Best in the World at What I Have No Idea, is officially out right now. I already read the entire book. I'm not much of a reader, but I picked up the book yesterday, and I slammed it out in about a 24-hour period, which is quite the accomplishment.
Well, I mean, and you're not the only one. I mean, I've been getting a lot of people. I mean, the book just came out on Tuesday, and a lot of people have said they've read it already. And that kind of seems to be a common theme for all three of my books, which I'll take it as a compliment, because I know when there's books that come out for people that I'm really into, and if it's an engaging book and it doesn't feel like a chore, it can go by really, really fast. So I'm glad that you're able to bang it out the way you did.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, too, that when it comes to a book like this, I like to read it like that because it is engaging. There's a lot of things in there that you've seen, and now you kind of get your perspective of it. You get the behind-the-scenes look at it, and it's a really easy read, even for the 400 pages that it is. I assume that's probably a lot of the talk that a lot of people have been saying as well, right?
Well, it's interesting because this is the first book that I've done, well, to a certain extent, a little bit of Undisputed. Undisputed was kind of like the middle. The first book, people were just basically reading it through my recollections and my thoughts and my eyes. Undisputed was kind of half and half, but this is the first of the books that I've done where most of my fans can kind of almost follow along with the bouncing ball because they were there when it happened, you know, and they can kind of go back and relive their own experiences of watching these things or reading these things, and being able to kind of say, I remember when that happened. I remember when I saw that, or yeah, that was cool. And it's the first time that's happened. So I think a lot of people are really being able to kind of put this into their own experiences because it's only from the last 6-7 years that these stories have been written. So even up to the return at the Royal Rumble from last year, that's where the book ends. And most people know that one. So whether you know some of the stories or all of them, you can relate to your own personal experiences as well.
And I think that was also a very interesting time when it came to your career because at that point, the WWE audience knew you. They were waiting for you to come back. And, you know, you talked about this where some of your best feuds, like Shawn Michaels or Rey Mysterio, happened at this time. And it's still like while all that stuff happened a few years ago, it wasn't that long ago. So I think a lot of people really remember a lot of that stuff. And like you said, you can kind of go with the flow of all that. So when it comes to you writing the book, was there a lot of stuff that you had to go back and look up, or was there a lot of stuff that was still fresh in your mind that you could remember when you were writing it?
Half and half. The Shawn Michaels thing that was so involved and so detailed, the 2008 feud, that, you know, I remember the corner posts of it, you know, the ladder match and the match where he had all the blood and, you know, punching his wife and all that sort of thing. But when I went back and I actually Googled the feud and found a couple timelines of it that some guys had put together, and to read through that was like, wow, I'd really forgotten some of the intricacies of that storyline. And that's when it was like kind of, I was reliving it myself to be able to go back and remember all of that stuff so I could kind of write it down. And, you know, I'm glad that I did because, like I said, for some of the stories that are 10, 15, 20 years ago, I'm remembering it the best I can possibly remember it. For this one, I can actually go back and read everything that happened, which in some ways is good, some ways is bad, but I'm sure a lot of detail, for example, in the Michael Jericho feud would have been left out had I not had the option and the luxury to go back and kind of re-go through it and reread it myself. So I think it was a good way to write the book by using the internet as a tool to help me remember some of the things that I've forgotten.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's cool about it as well is that you go back and you look at, you know, so much of the details and everything, but I think the passion's really there from a standpoint from, you know, when it comes to the fans, and be able to see the kind of behind the scenes look at that too, that be able to hear you explain it in the way that you do. It's just, I mean, the entire book is like this. It's more of a, you know, sitting in a car and going, you know, having a long conversation with you rather than, you know, being written out in this long form manuscript that you feel like you're just talking to you, you know, with some, you know, added social entertainment things that are popped in as well.
It's another reason why I think people like my books, and it's been that way from the start. And I think the major reason for that is because I write all of it. I have a collaborator, Pete Fornitail, that I've worked with on every book, but that's more of a producer role or a collaborator. But as far as an actual writer, I'm the 100% sole writer of the entire book, the sole editor. I mean, I get some editing helps from Pete, from the editor, but I'm making all the final decisions. That book's exactly the way I wanted it. Every word written, handcrafted, organized, and placed by me. So that's why it sounds like a conversation with me, because it is. It's just me in written form. It's not giving anybody else the responsibility or the luxury of kind of trying to say it in my voice. It's me writing it in my voice. And I think that's a very important way to do it. And, when I got the opportunity or the offer to write a third book, I actually thought about it for a second. Do I really need a third autobiography? It's at the time I was 41 years old, and, Nixon has one autobiography. I had three. What am I going to put in this thing? But then I always knew that I had the Shawn Michaels feud, the Mysterio feud, the trips to Iraq, the Dancing with the Stars thing. I mean, I knew that there was enough there that I could at least get a good start. And then when I actually sat down and started writing, adding in all the resurrection of Fozzy, hosting Golden Gods, and then just all the minutia of my life, I did have way more than I needed, to the point where I was actually editing stuff out. And that's also one of the reasons why you'll see, the chapter about my ring music, my entrance songs, a chapter about all my catchphrases, the chapter that I call bonus track, the story with, coming back to Los Angeles from Tijuana on the immigration bus. It was one of those stories that just never made it to any of the other books. And I was like, I don't understand why. It's a great story. So I had those things to rely on too. And then once I started writing, I realized I didn't need those things, but I already liked the concept of doing them. I just took some of those extra stories and put them aside for next time. But definitely no wasted pages in this book, nor has there been in any of my books. And I'm actually pretty proud of that. It's pretty cool to see people bringing all three books to my signings, or take a picture of all three of them side by side. And I have this trilogy of great, great stories that was all, signed, sealed, and delivered about a period of my life that I was only basically 42 years old. It's not a bad start.
Yeah, I know, because it's amazing when you go back and you look at everything and you talk about whether or not you have enough material for these books, but you've stayed so busy, and you can tell that you're having a lot of fun with all the different projects that you do, whether it's wrestling or whether it's with Fozzy or whether it's other things that you've been a part of, that it's easy to fill up the books, I think, come the end of the day, because there are so many stories and kind of the life that you lived. And I assume there's going to be probably at least one more book.
Well, I guess it all depends on how this one does. It's business. So if something does good, they want more. And when I did Lion's Tale, I ended it in 1999, and it was 2007 or whatever it was, not knowing if I'd ever do a second book. I didn't sign like a 2-book deal or a 3-book deal. It was just for one. But I didn't want to compromise any of those stories. I had a lot to write about. I knew there was a lot in the pipeline, and I figured I'll write this book, make it the best it can possibly be. If I never write another book, well, at least I did this one good, and didn't compromise or didn't shorten anything or edit things out or skim over anything. And that's one of the reasons why, I was a little insulted when WWE was doing a lot of their books back in the early 2000s, when, somebody else was putting one out every month, including China and Lita and Hardy Boys and all these people. I was like, fuck, man. I mean, I got 10 times the experience of a debut. But in retrospect, it worked out for the best, because those books would have been compromised. And I never wanted to do that. And that's why in the Lion's Tale, there's hardly any WWE stories in there, because I wasn't in the WWE. The only stories that are in there are just, meetings that I had with different guys or growing up in the scene. And mostly it's, from the other countries in WCW, et cetera. So I think by the time I got to this book, I know how to write a good story. I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know what to put together, and I know how to keep it entertaining and also keep it diverse. And there's still people, not so much on this round, but in book 2, there was a lot of people like, this sucks. There's so much Fozzy stories and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, did you actually read them? Well, no. Well, why not? It's the story of my life from everything that I'm doing. And I think a lot of people that are a little resistant to that and Undisputed welcome that in Best of the World, because whether you like music or like wrestling or like Dance with the Stars or like just adventurous tales, there's plenty of them in all shapes and forms. And I always try and get all my fans to understand there's more to life and more to my life than just wrestling. And if you're a fan of mine, you have to expect that and accept it, but know that you're going to like it, because I wouldn't write about it if it wasn't entertaining.
And the thing is, it wouldn't be a true autobiography if you didn't write about your entire life, if you left those portions out, because Fozzie's been a huge chunk of your life.
Well, and you can see how the band has grown over the last couple of years as well, too. And you know how it is, Brian. Wrestling fans, God bless them, are some of the most loyal on the planet and also some of the most closed-minded. It has to be wrestling all times, all times, all times. I think there's legitimately a section of my fan base that just wants to see me explode into a puff of dust in the ring someday when I'm 65 years old. You know, but those are the type of things we can never make happy, and all I ever do is just make myself happy and know that it's quality and know that it's good. Like you said, Fozzy has become a big part of my life, but it's just as entertaining, as exciting, as adventurous, with just as many ups and downs and stupid stories as I went through in the wrestling world. And to me, it's always an interesting dichotomy to see the growth of the band, the same way you saw the growth of Chris Jericho in the business 10, 15 years ago as well.
Well, I think what's interesting too that you know, if people go out to your shows, not only be entertained, but it's funny now to see the audience that's there, because I remember when you guys first started doing shows, and you did one here in Orlando, and of course a lot of people were there to see you because of wrestling, and we're wearing Chris Jericho shirts and whatnot. But if you see less and less of the Chris Jericho shirts, and now they're like, we want to see Fozzy, we want to see the band because we dig what they're doing. It's not just about you, it's about the entire band, and we enjoy being part of the show.
Well, the thing is, you know, if you look through the lineage of Fozzy, it was never about me. People took it that way, but it was never Fozzy featuring Chris Jericho or Chris Jericho's band or Chris Jericho Presents. It's a rock and roll band with 5 separate entities, and everybody's a rock star, and everybody does their part, and everyone does what they do best on stage. And you're right. I mean, there's still Jericho fans there that wear Y2J shirts, and that's cool. We don't care. But we know that if it was just coming to see Jericho on stage trying to be a rock star, it would only last for one time. But after doing this for as long as we have, and to see the growth of the band and how we continue to grow and the respect that we get from our peers, from the fans, from everybody in between, it's the real deal. And if it wasn't good, we wouldn't still be able to do it. And, you know, I remember Paul Stanley once said, you can't put flash pots and makeup on a record. You know, yes, that's what we do on stage, but the music has to be good and has to sustain us, or else no one's going to care. And it's the same for Fozzy. My name isn't as big as people think it is. It's not like they're going to come. It's not like it's Jesus Christ on stage or Obama on stage. You know, come see Obama play. He could probably sell at Madison Square Garden, or maybe not. A lot of people don't give a shit if you do things outside of your, you know, known world. In order to get popular and to get over, you have to appeal to people who have never seen you before. You know, it's the same with Dance with the Stars. I knew WWE fans weren't going to watch Dance with the Stars. I knew they wouldn't give 2 shits. That's not why I lasted for 7 weeks and why I did good. It's because I appealed to the people that like Dancing with the Stars. Same with Fozzy. Our competition is not, you know, Rock fans and Austin fans and Cena fans and Orton fans. It's Metallica and Avenged Sevenfold and Shinedown and, you know, Iron Maiden. We have to appeal to those people and get those people on our side and get those people into what we're doing. Because if we don't, the band will never grow. And we've been able to do that.
I think one of the things that I really liked about the book, too, and how it relates to a lot of people, not only be an easy read, but you're not afraid to open up about being such a big fan of so many different people, especially when it comes to your idols in music and your experiences and getting an opportunity to meet some of them and basically being a fanboy like so many other people are. Was it easy to open up about that and talk about the way that you did? Because there's going to be some people that think, oh, it's Chris Jericho. He's a huge star. He's not going to, allow himself to be seen like that necessarily, or some people might not, but you make it sound just like anybody else would be when they get an opportunity and they're really excited about meeting somebody they've looked up to.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been very accessible to people is I am a fan. I wear that on my sleeves. I wrote about it in Lionsdale the first time I walked in the WCW dressing room, and Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and all those guys were in there, and I had to stop and give myself a mark-out moment of, oh, my God, this is unbelievable. And then I could open up the door and just be a guy. Or when I met Wayne Gretzky, it was the same thing. And that was when I was in the wrestling world. Okay, I could mark out that I'm in the same company as Hulk Hogan, but not for too long, because now I'm here to become his peer and to work with him and to be better than him. And it's the same with the music biz. I mean, when I first met Hetfield, it wasn't at a joint show, Fozzy opening for Metallica or whatever. It was a concert. It was Jericho there as a fan. Now, fast forward to when we did Soundwave with Metallica, we're on the same bill. We're touring together, traveling together. I'll go right up to James and talk to him all day. Or when I host the Golden Gods of Metallica play, I'll bust his balls and have fun just like anybody else. But it's still under a fan pretense. And there's nobody in the world that's not a fan of somebody. And if you say you're not, you're a liar. I mean, if Paul McCartney, if he met Little Richard or when he sees Little Richard, I'm sure feels the same way. Like, holy fuck, I'm with Little Richard, his hero. Everybody has that element. If you forget or try and convince yourself that you don't, you're lying. And I've never had that problem. Yes, I'm a fan. To the day I die, I will be a fan of somebody. And that includes people that I grew up watching and new people, new bands and new, personalities, all that sort of thing. My daughters went and saw One Direction a couple weeks ago, and they filmed some of it, and I watched some of it, and that fucking Harry Styles is a cool cat on stage. If I got a chance to meet him, I wouldn't have a fanboy freak-out moment, but I think it's pretty cool. I would probably ask to take a picture with him. I did a radio show with Russell Brand yesterday. I asked to take a picture with him, too. It's like just a cool guy that, hey, man, I'd like to take a picture of this guy to document it and post it because I think it's cool. Not because, I'm Chris Jericho, fuck that. I mean, remember when I first started, everyone was like, you want to read pro wrestling magazines and see your picture in there? What are you, some kind of mark? What's stupid or nerdy or bad about collecting your own stuff? I always thought that was pretty cool and didn't feel bad at all about that. I actually felt like I took pride in it and took honor in it, and that to me is something that if you ever forget that, you probably shouldn't be doing this anymore.
I know you just wrapped up recently your most recent run with WWE, even though you're going to be doing some shows for them overseas coming up here in a few weeks. But what were your overall thoughts of this last run that you had and getting an opportunity to work with the guys you did, like Bray Wyatt and the awesome match that you had on the last pay-per-view with Randy Orton?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going back just for 6 shows. Don't read anything more into it. And people are like, Jericho's coming back in November. It's 6 shows, and that's because they asked me to come in because the roster was a little bit thin with injuries, etc. And that's cool. I have no problem doing that. I like doing it. I came back in the summer because we were going to do a Fozzy tour. It fell through, and WWE's always calling and asking, let me know when you're ready, let us know when you're ready. So I was ready, but my answer is always the same. What do you want me to do? And for a while, I was like, well, come back and we'll tell you. I was like, well, tell me and I'll come back. And it took a while to kind of get that through their heads that I'm serious about this. I'm not going to come back just to be there. I don't need that. I want to come back and do something that has some relevance and has some prominence and has some steam behind it. We were laughing about, we don't want to fandango you again. And I don't look back on the fandango thing and think that sucked. I look back and think it was really cool, but it wasn't what I signed up for. And being the second match on WrestleMania, wasn't really what I came back. It wasn't what I was promised, and it was changed, and that's how the business works. But I was saying, listen, I know when you bring The Rock back or Brock Lesnar back, it's not, well, we'll see what we want to do. It's, we're going to ask you, and if you like it, and we like it, and if we both approve, then we'll do it. And that's kind of what I wanted as well at this point. So I wanted Bray Wyatt, and I wanted to work with him at WrestleMania 30. It didn't work out. That's why I didn't come back. There was nobody really for me to work with any type of prominence that the company felt I should do or I should do. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, I thought that the Wyatt thing could have probably had a better story, and I pitched actually what I thought was a really good one, but Vince didn't agree, and he just wanted to kind of keep it more straightforward. I think the last month I was there was really back in the groove again. I think I had a lot of great house show matches with a lot of different guys. But the Bray Wyatt cage match in Baltimore and then the Randy Orton Night of Champions match in Nashville, I thought were two, whatever a 5-star match is, two really, really, really good matches that I would put on my list of my all-time favorites. And that was good to know because, as the years go by, I mean, I feel just as good as I ever did. And when I go back, I'm mentally prepared. And, I think I still work up to the level that I've set for myself. But when you actually go out there and do some of those things and actually get the the feedback from the live audience that you know you can get, and then from your peers and from critics. And you know, the fact that my very last match was the best match on the pay-per-view against Randy Orton, I take great pride in that. And if I never work again, I'll always know that I have that. So it's kind of cool to be able to still come back and contribute at the highest level. And the day, and Brian, I'm not exaggerating with this, the day I feel I can't compete at the highest level that I've set for myself and can't steal the show, I will not do it again. And you can go on the record, I'm the one guy that can say that. I'm sure Shawn Michaels can say that too, but you will not see me in a ring again as a parody of myself or hashtag or anything other than the absolute best and go toe-to-toe with anybody else on the roster.
You know, you mentioned that cage match against Bray Wyatt, and I couldn't help but laugh but also think, you crazy bastard, when you did that dive off the top of the cage. What brought that on? Was it just kind of like, I can do it, I want to prove it to myself, or what was that all about?
A little bit of that. I mean, I don't think I'd seen a good cage dive in a while. I wanted to do it to prove to myself, but also I don't really know. I don't have anything to prove, nor do I ever have anything to prove. I think I have great pride in the fact that I'm in better shape now than I've ever been at 43 than I was at 33. And I just thought, I want to do this just so people like you will say, you're a crazy bastard. And just to know to myself that I can still go the extra mile. And once again, the day that I won't do those type of things is the day I'll quit. I think it was just to see, like, I want to do this, but I want to do it properly. I want to do it, set it up properly, and just make it a very classic, fun, exciting moment. And people, I guess, to kind of put me into the front of the line of people going, that Jericho, you still don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if he still got it, because I know that I did. But I guess just to kind of prove it to people and show people, don't ever underestimate Chris Jericho, whether I'm 43 or 23 or working in the opening match or the last match. I'll go out there and still rock your socks off, because that's what I do. You know, maybe that's sort of a vibe.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the thing about Bray Wyatt, and I guess Vince, turned down some of the ideas that you had, but that's been one of your calling cards, especially, over the second half of your career, is just how deep the storylines have been. Why don't you think we see more of those in WWE? Is it just that there aren't guys with the experience like you have to be able to go and pitch that, or what do you think is going on there, why we don't see more things that are longer and as in depth?
I'm not sure, Brian. I don't know. That could be the reason, maybe, that there's not as many guys that pitch things. But I did go and pitch something that was really, in my opinion, really good. I thought it would have been a real money-making angle, a great storyline, a great tying up of a great feud that I'd had years before. I'll probably wait till my next book to get into it. But it was basically, bringing in the old gunslinger who used to be my mortal enemy and ends up being my partner and my savior, sort of thing. I don't really know why exactly the reason for this, but it's just the way it is, and that's fine. Like I said, you can only pitch things and do the best that you can, but I've always been based around the story, and the best angles that I've had, especially that I talked about in The Best in the World, that what I have no idea, were Michaels, Mysterio, and Punk, and all three of those had a very personal slant to them that took it to the next level. And I've always been a fan of those type of stories, and we don't see as many of them now as we used to, and I guess I can't really give you a reason for that. I don't really know. I do know that whenever I'm there, I do my best to put as much of a storyline into it as I can, but after a while, either they say yes or no, and then you move on.
One of the things that's greatly detailed in the book is your relationship with Vince McMahon, about how you can call him, you can text him, you guys, are free to talk about whatever you want and, clear the air if you need to, but you still respect one another and get along come the end of the day. How do you put that in the words? And then also, how many other people do you think have ever had that kind of relationship? Because it seems like a very unique one with the boss.
Well, Steve Austin told me a long time ago that you gotta have a relationship with Vince, and it's very hard. He's intimidating, and he doesn't give out respect to just anybody. And it took me a long time to get that respect. I think it was a slow process, but I really got it in 2008. That took me until 2008 to, in my opinion, really reach my full potential as a performer. I think I'd flirted with it a few times and showed flashes of it, but when I became kind of the suit and tie hypocrite Jericho with Michael's feud that kind of kicked it off, that's when I became a legitimate money-making very important cog in the WWE wheel. Became the top guy as the heel, the top heel in the business. And when I call myself the best in the world, I call myself that because I believed it. On certain nights, not every night, but on certain nights, there was nobody that could touch me in that time frame. I don't throw anybody you want from any country. I was better. And once I got that confidence, that's when people started flocking to this character, and not in a good way. Getting attacked on the streets in 2009, having batteries thrown at me in 2010, being attacked in the ring. Those type of things don't really happen anymore. People know wrestling is a show. This was beyond that. It was a character that people legitimately wanted to harm, wanted to assault. And that takes you back to the 70s and the 60s. Who sees that anymore? It might have been the last of the true great heels because people believed it. And I worked it that way. I dropped into it. I was an asshole. I didn't let any merchandise be sold, no catchphrases, dropped the countdown, changed my look, changed the tights, changed the tone of my voice, everything. And when that happened, Vince really got into that. And he always had my back for the majority of the time. So it was, the Brazil flag incident was the one where he didn't have my back, but he did have my back to get me out of the country safely. I shouldn't say he didn't have my back. He didn't agree with what I did. The other times, getting attacked in the streets in Victoria and having the whole world against me, he was the one guy that stood behind me. He was the one guy that stood behind me on the glow stick incident when everyone wanted to string me up by the balls. So I think Vince sees a lot of himself in me. I'm a rebel. I do things the way that I see fit, but I do it for the good of the company. I'm a company man through and through. I've wrestled for nobody. I haven't taken a bump at any other ring other than a WWE ring since 1999 when I first started working for Vince. And I never will. I won't go back to Japan for a tour or go work here or go work there. I'm not interested in it. If I'm going to be wrestling, it's for Vince McMahon and Vince McMahon only. And he knows that. I think he respects that. But he also knows I'm not a yes man. I don't have that in me. I have to tell him how I feel. I have to tell him why I think this is better. And I have to tell him, sometimes that I think he's wrong. Nobody likes to hear that, especially a guy in his position. But I think that's what I could do it in a probably more deliberate way, more of an ambassadorial way. But I don't have that in me with him, and I don't think he wants that. So there is going to be some give and take. But I think the bottom line is that we both respect each other. At least I know I respect him immensely. I've learned a lot from him as a performer, as a person, as a businessman, and I'm proud to have the relationship with him that I do.
When it comes to where you're at in your wrestling career right now, and whenever the times are that you are going to come back, and the position you're in right now, can you ever be a heel again? Because there's a certain thing that goes into that, and I think not only because of the position that you're in right now and how much people like seeing you back when you're able to come back, but also I think you would almost have to be there for a longer period of time to be able to really sink in and get people to really hate you again.
Well, that's what you think, but I'm different. I could turn people in a second if I had the right baby face. If you put me in there with Daniel Bryan, give Dean Ambrose another month or two, put me in there with him, I could be a heel in 5 seconds. But you have to have a strong, over-the-top baby face that kids love and that chicks love. And those two guys fit that category. If you have a wishy-washy baby face, wouldn't work. Absolutely not. But against those two guys, I could do it. I could do it. I know I could.
From your perspective, what's your thoughts about Dean Ambrose? Because he's really starting to catch on.
I saw Dean when he first started, and I knew there was something, different about him. He has that Jeff Hardy X factor. There's just something about him that you can't push on somebody. You can teach someone to take a bump and give them a look, or give them wins, but certain guys just have a certain something about them that is going to take them to the next level no matter what. Dean definitely has that. And in my opinion, I'm not the god of everything, but I've been pretty good with my track record of picking guys. I think he's the closest that they have right now to being the next face of the WWE. I don't think that's as important anymore with the network and less emphasis on pay-per-views and all this sort of thing. Now it's just more about the company. But as far as a guy who can come in there as the top baby face, I think Dean's your best bet right now.
I want to also mention your podcast, Talk is Jericho, which everybody can subscribe to. And How's the podcast going for you, and how much fun or how difficult can it be sometimes in trying to book guests for that and getting the people that you want to talk to?
It's not difficult because I don't have any real list of who I want. I just go talk to anybody that's interesting to me. Yeah. I keep my eyes and ears open. When I see somebody or meet somebody, obviously I'm on it. I'm thinking right away, oh, that could be a great podcast guest, you know. And it's not a wrestling podcast. Once again, like we talked about earlier, anything I do, you know, it's going to have some wrestling in it. But that's not my be-all and end-all. And, you know, I'd rather go get William Shatner than The Rock at this point. I really would. And I got William Shatner, and he did okay ratings. You know, it's like Hornswoggle did better, as crazy as that sounds. But that's kind of the world I live in. I have to try and convince my fans and let them know that, once again, if you're going to get into the world of Chris Jericho, you have to expect that you're going to learn some things about some things that you never thought about before. You know, and that's why, okay, I get lumped in with the wrestling podcast. That's just because I'm known best as a wrestler. But name anybody else of the wrestling podcast that's had Triple H, William Shatner, Run DMC, and a Bigfoot hunter. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get that type of diversity on any other of the wrestling podcasts. And, you know, lump me in whichever way you want. I've been lumped into certain things my whole life, and that's why I piss people off when I go do other things. I love doing the podcast. It's a lot of fun for me. It's fun for me to sit down with my friends, guys like Triple H that I had never talked to for 90 minutes in my life. It's just as fun for me to get a chance to talk to Ace Frehley for 45 minutes, who I've never met before. You know, and you know, my competition in this is not Steve Austin and Jim Ross. It's Adam Carolla and Joe Rogan and Chris Hardwick. That's the type of podcast that I want to have. So I can get Tom Hanks, or I can get Paul McCartney, or I can get Hulk Hogan, or anybody in between. You know, and once I get to that level and get those type of guests, then I'll be happy. Until then, I'll just keep plugging away with anybody that I think is interesting. And I don't have anybody in my show that's not going to be good. I will say that.
Last thing, did you get an opportunity to watch the premiere of Walking Dead, and are you going to be on Talking Dead this season, do you think?
Yeah, man, I did get a chance to watch it, and it blew my mind. I mean, that show is so amazing, and just that trough scene was the worst ever. I mean, gosh, I've seen some stuff, but that one just it was really.
Did you realize that the first guy that they killed was actually somebody that had appeared, like, you know, a couple seasons ago, like in a bit role, and they brought him back just for that?
No, I didn't realize it.
And not only that, but that's the same actor that plays the Penguin in Gotham on Fox.
Ah, gotcha. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, there you go. And like I said, there's so much stuff in that show that blows my mind. I love it so much, and I would love to be Talking Dead again. It's funny because I just had Chris Hardwick on my show the other day, and when I was done, I was like, I should try and see if I can get on Talking Dead again. Although I'm sure now, even more than ever, it's almost impossible to get on that show. But I think the only upper hand I have is that I did really good on it the first time I was on. So, yes, I would like to do it again, and hopefully soon I'll get the chance.
Everybody can go to Amazon, go to bookstores everywhere that you can get a book and get Chris's new book, The Best in the World at What I Have No Idea. Certain to be a New York Times bestseller in the very near future. A fantastic read. Chris, I always appreciate the time. Keep up the great work. And obviously, people can find you on Twitter. It's I Am Jericho, and find out about all the upcoming tour dates when it comes to Fozzy as well. I know you guys just made an announcement about the UK and Ireland tour, and then you've got some other dates coming up here in the States where everybody can see Fozzy. So keep up the great work, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Always good talking to you, Brian. Thank you.
The talking is over. Thanks for downloading Between the Ropes.
Man, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
For more, go to BetweenTheRopes.com and subscribe to Between the Ropes on iTunes.
Thank you. Have a nice day.